Every nation believes it's different. Every generation thinks they've learned from the past. Every empire swears it will be the exception to history's brutal patterns. But here's the uncomfortable truth that keeps historians awake at night. The same story has played out 5 times over the last 5 centuries, and right now, America is walking down that exact same path. The signs aren't subtle if you know where to look. Massive debt loads crushing the government's ability to function. A currency that's losing its grip on global dominance. Military commitments stretching resources beyond breaking points. Social divisions tearing at the fabric of society. And at the center of it all, the dangerous delusion that this time will be different. 5 empires rose to dominate their worlds. 5 empires convinced themselves they had cracked the code of permanent power, and 5 empires discovered that history doesn't care about your exceptionalism when the bill comes due. The Spanish Empire controlled more territory than any power before it, yet collapsed under the weight of its own treasure. The Dutch Republic built the first truly global financial system, only to watch it crumble when competitors learned to play the same game better. The French Empire stretched across continents and commanded the respect of the world until revolutionary chaos and endless wars bled it dry. The British Empire claimed the sun never set on its territories, yet found itself bankrupt and broken after 2 devastating world wars. The Soviet Union possessed enough nuclear weapons to end civilization, but rotted from within as its command economy failed to deliver prosperity to its people. Each of these powers reached heights that seemed untouchable. Each believed their system was superior, their position unassailable, their dominance eternal. And each discovered that empires don't fall because of single catastrophic events. They fall because they repeat the same mistakes, following patterns so predictable that you can trace them like a blueprint across centuries. The pattern always starts the same way. A rising power develops some crucial advantage: superior technology, better financial systems, more effective military organization, or access to new resources. This advantage propels them to the top of the global hierarchy. They become the indispensable nation, the power everyone else must reckon with. Trade flows through their systems, conflicts require their involvement, and their currency becomes the standard others measure themselves against. But success breeds arrogance, and arrogance breeds complacency. The empire begins to believe its dominance is natural, inevitable, permanent. It stops innovating as aggressively. It starts taking shortcuts. It begins to rely on past victories rather than preparing for future challenges. Most dangerously, it starts spending beyond its means, convinced that its special position exempts it from the normal rules of economics and finance. The decline follows a depressingly familiar script. Military commitments multiply faster than the resources to sustain them. The costs of maintaining global dominance start to outweigh the benefits. Competitors emerge who study the empire's methods and develop ways to counter or copy them. The financial systems that once provided strength become sources of vulnerability. Social cohesion fractures as different groups compete for shrinking resources or blame each other for mounting problems. And throughout this process, the empire's leaders and citizens remain convinced that their situation is unique, that their challenges are temporary, that their recovery is just around the corner. They point to their military superiority, their economic size, their cultural influence, their historical achievements. They insist that comparisons to fallen powers are unfair, that their circumstances are completely different, that their system is fundamentally sounder. But history has heard all these arguments before. The Spanish pointed to their global empire and endless streams of American silver. The Dutch highlighted their innovative financial markets and commercial networks. The French emphasized their military prowess and revolutionary ideals. The British cited their industrial might and naval supremacy. The Soviets boasted about their ideological superiority and nuclear arsenal. Every single one of them had compelling reasons to believe they were different, special, immune to the fate that had befallen others. Yet the pattern played out anyway because empires don't fall due to external conquest or sudden catastrophe. They fall because they exhaust themselves trying to maintain positions they can no longer afford. They fall because they mistake temporary advantages for permanent superiority. They fall because they prioritize consumption over production, debt over savings, promises over performance. The United States today exhibits every warning sign that preceded these historical collapses. The national debt has exploded beyond any sustainable level, with interest payments alone consuming an ever larger share of government revenues. The dollar's role as the global reserve currency is being challenged by competitors who have studied American financial dominance and developed alternatives. Military commitments span the globe, while the industrial base that once supported American power has been hollowed out by decades of financialization and offshoring. Social trust has eroded to levels not seen since the Civil War, with Americans increasingly viewing their fellow citizens as enemies rather than neighbors. Political institutions that once commanded respect have become sources of division and cynicism. The economic system that once created broad prosperity now generates massive inequality, with a small elite accumulating unprecedented wealth, while middle-class living standards stagnate or decline. Infrastructure that was once the envy of the world now crumbles from decades of deferred maintenance. Educational systems that once produced the world's most innovative workforce now struggle to maintain basic competency standards. Healthcare costs consume an ever larger share of economic output, while delivering outcomes that lag behind other developed nations. These aren't temporary setbacks or cyclical problems. They're structural weaknesses that mirror the exact same vulnerabilities that brought down previous empires. The specific details change, but the underlying dynamics remain constant across centuries and civilizations. What makes this pattern so dangerous is that it's self-reinforcing. Each symptom of decline makes the others worse. Mounting debt requires higher taxes or more borrowing, both of which slow economic growth. Slower growth makes the debt burden heavier and social problems more acute. Social divisions make it harder to address economic challenges, while economic stress intensifies social conflicts. Military overstretch weakens the economy, while economic weakness undermines military effectiveness. The empire becomes trapped in a vicious cycle where every solution creates new problems, where every attempt to maintain the status quo accelerates the decline. Leaders resort to increasingly desperate measures, debasing the currency, imposing price controls, borrowing against future generations, starting conflicts to distract from domestic problems. But these tactics only work temporarily, and they make the eventual reckoning more severe. The Spanish learned this when their silver-fueled inflation destroyed their domestic economy. The French discovered it when their revolutionary experiments led to chaos and dictatorship. The British found out when 2 world wars bankrupted their empire. The Soviets realized it when their command economy finally collapsed under its own contradictions. The most chilling aspect of this pattern is how predictable it becomes once you recognize it. Historians can trace the arc of imperial decline decades before it becomes obvious to contemporary observers. The signs are always there for those willing to see them, but empires at their peak are psychologically incapable of acknowledging their own mortality. This psychological blindness isn't accidental. It's built into the nature of imperial power itself. Empires don't just dominate through military force or economic leverage, they dominate through ideas, through convincing both themselves and others that their dominance is natural, beneficial, and permanent. Questioning that dominance threatens the entire system, so the questioning is suppressed, ignored, or dismissed. But reality doesn't care about psychological comfort or ideological convenience. The laws of economics, the dynamics of international competition, and the patterns of historical change operate regardless of what people want to believe. And those forces are now converging on the United States in ways that mirror exactly what happened to its predecessors. The most telling sign isn't the debt or the military overstretch or even the social divisions. It's the response to anyone who points out these parallels. Just as the Spanish dismissed critics who warned about silver-driven inflation, just as the British scoffed at suggestions their empire might fade, Americans today react with indignation when confronted with historical comparisons. We're not Rome, they insist, missing the point entirely. Of course, America isn't Rome. It's also not Spain or Britain or the Soviet Union. But it's following their playbook with disturbing precision, and the specific differences they cite as proof of their uniqueness are the same types of arguments every declining empire has made. The dollar remains the world's reserve currency, they argue, ignoring how quickly monetary dominance can evaporate when confidence cracks. American military technology is still superior, they claim, overlooking how asymmetric warfare and economic pressure can neutralize conventional advantages. The American economy is the largest in the world, they point out, forgetting that size means nothing if it's built on unsustainable foundations. These aren't comforting facts. They're dangerous delusions that prevent the hard choices necessary to avoid historical precedent. Every empire that fell believed right up until the end that their situation was different, their advantages permanent, their system unbeatable. The British Empire was still expanding in 1914. The Soviet Union was still a superpower in 1985. Collapse, when it comes, happens faster than anyone expects. But here's what makes the American situation potentially more dangerous than any previous imperial decline: the scale of integration. When the Spanish Empire collapsed, most of the world barely noticed. When the British Empire faded, other powers stepped in to maintain global trade and security. When the Soviet Union imploded, the Western system absorbed the shock and continued functioning. American collapse would be different because American power is woven into every aspect of the global system. The dollar isn't just America's currency, it's the foundation of international trade. American military bases don't just protect American interests, they guarantee the security arrangements that allow global commerce to function. American financial markets don't just serve American investors, they're the plumbing through which global capital flows. This integration was supposed to make American dominance more stable, more permanent. Instead, it's created systemic vulnerabilities that make American decline potentially catastrophic for everyone. When the foundation cracks, everything built on top of it comes crashing down. The warning signs are multiplying faster than anyone wants to acknowledge. China's Belt and Road Initiative is creating alternative trade networks that bypass American control. Russia and Iran are developing payment systems that avoid the dollar-denominated banking system. European leaders openly discuss the need for strategic autonomy from American influence. Traditional allies are hedging their bets, maintaining relationships with America while quietly building alternatives. These aren't hostile acts or signs of ingratitude. They're rational responses to growing American unpredictability and weakness. Other nations have studied the same history, and they're preparing for a world where American dominance is no longer guaranteed. They're doing exactly what rising do when powers always established empires show signs of decline. They position themselves for the transition. The tragedy is that American decline isn't inevitable in the same way that previous imperial collapses were inevitable. The United States still possesses enormous advantages: natural resources, geographic security, technological innovation, cultural influence. Unlike previous empires, America has the theoretical capability to address its structural problems before they become terminal. But addressing those problems would require acknowledging that they exist, and acknowledgement would require abandoning the myths that sustain imperial psychology. It would mean admitting that American exceptionalism is a comforting fiction, that the current system is unsustainable, that fundamental changes are necessary to avoid historical precedent. The political system shows no signs of such recognition. Instead, both parties compete to promise that America can maintain its global dominance without sacrifice, that debt doesn't matter because America is special, that military commitments can expand while the economy stagnates, that social divisions can deepen without consequences. These promises are not just unrealistic, they're actively dangerous because they prevent the adjustments that might still be possible. Every year that passes without serious reform makes the eventual reckoning more severe and the available options more limited. The choice isn't between maintaining the status quo and accepting decline. The choice is between managed adjustment and chaotic collapse. History suggests which path will be chosen. Empires never voluntarily scale back their ambitions or acknowledge their limitations. They double down on failed strategies, blame external enemies for internal problems, and convince themselves that one more war, one more intervention, one more financial manipulation will restore their former glory. The pattern is so consistent across centuries that it might as well be a natural law. Rising powers become dominant powers, become declining powers, become historical footnotes, all while insisting they're different from everyone who came before them. The United States is currently somewhere in the middle of that progression, exhibiting all the symptoms of imperial overstretch, while maintaining all the delusions of imperial invincibility. What happens next isn't a mystery. History has already written the script, and America is following it with remarkable fidelity. The only question is how long the performance will last, and how dramatic the final act will be. But given the integrated nature of the global system, and the scale of American commitments, when the curtain finally falls, it won't just be the end of another empire. It will be the end of the world, as we've known it for the past 75 years. And unlike previous imperial transitions, there's no obvious successor waiting in the wings to maintain stability and order. That's what makes this moment so uniquely dangerous. Previous imperial transitions happened in a world where power could shift without destroying the entire system. When Spain exhausted itself, Britain was there finally to pick up the pieces. When Britain buckled, America stepped into the void. But America's decline is happening in a world where no single power can replace what's being lost. China lacks the military reach and cultural appeal. Russia has the weapons, but not the economy. Europe has the wealth, but not the unity or will. What we're witnessing isn't just another changing of the guard. It's the potential dissolution of global order itself, with no clear successor capable of maintaining the complex web of trade, finance, and security that America built over decades. The consequences reach far beyond economics or geopolitics. When previous empires fell, they usually retained their core territories and populations. Their decline was relative, not absolute. But America's position is different because so much of its power rests on intangible assets. the dollar's reserve status, the credibility of its institutions, the trust in its promises. These advantages exist only as long as others believe in them, and belief can evaporate overnight. The patterns of history don't lie, and they don't make exceptions. 500 years of imperial rise and fall have taught us that power is temporary, dominance is fragile, and exceptionalism is always an illusion. America stands at the crossroads every empire eventually reaches, where the choice is between honest reckoning and inevitable collapse. History has the answers, but only if we're brave enough to listen.